Divine, right. All right, we're gonna get started here in just a moment. Let me go ahead and get this shared out. If you are tuning in right now, let me know where you are tuning in from. Because I learned that I had on some mics. I mean, some audios, speakers, and it was causing my audio to sound kind of warped. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get this started here in just a moment. Going to I am going to. We're gonna go ahead and that sounds good. Get this shared out real quickly. Hmm. My house is loud right now, so this morning I am dealing with a little bit of a headache. My head is hurting, but you know what? All that the show must go on, right? This morning live must go on. It hadn't been too bad, I probably wouldn't have got on here, but it's not as bad, but I can get through it. At least 15 to 20 minutes, 30 at tops, right? All right. If you are tuning in with me right now, let me know where you are tuning in from. And if this is your first time coming up on this live, I am Shakitha, and I am out of the state of Texas, originally from Oklahoma City. So, yes, well, Oklahoma, let me say that. Not actually, well, I was raised in the city, so I guess I could say just Oklahoma City, but I was born in this little bitty old town called um, Idabel, Oklahoma, McCurtain County. But anyway, I have no remembrance of that place at all. No remembrance of that place at all, um, because I was raised more or less a lot of places, but mostly in the city. But we are going to kick this off here in just a moment. If you are, like I said, if you are tuning in with me right now, um, let me know where you are tuning in from. And you don't have to, but if you would, if you like to let me know that you are watching this on the live, let me know. If you watching on replay, let me know. Like I said, it's your choice, not something that is pressured or is required. Because, like I said, a requirement to me is a need, so there's no need to do that. But if you don't mind sharing, um, do so. So, but let's get into this Quiet Queens Morning Live. Y'all know today it is Thursday, August the 20th, 2026. And you know, this month has like flown by. And as we know that these days have been very, very short. And that very well could be for me because I'm not really in the working space. So I don't have to get up and go to a job every morning. I get to get up and do what I want to. And I am really, really grateful for that. So maybe that's why my days go by so fast. I don't know. But anyway, it's like, it just goes by so fast. But anyway, let's get into this topic. It's a boundary you don't honor becomes only a statement. And if you are joining us for the very first time. This week we are talking about boundaries. Last week we talked about self-trust. And so we are talking about boundaries this week. And so on yesterday, just kind of getting into the description here, yeah, I'm probably going to repeat some things, but just to kind of go through this description, if you are able to read, great. If not, I will just go ahead and go through it anyway. So yesterday we talked about, communicating boundaries clearly without turning them into closing arguments, a closing argument. But communication is only one part of a boundary, right? And so what happens after you say it? If our behavior repeatedly contradicts what we communicate, the issue may no longer be whether the other person understands the boundary. We may need to look at whether our own actions are supporting it, right? And so this morning on Quiet Queens Morning Live, we are moving from communication into application. So now we are going to be putting everything into practice. We're going to be doing it, right? And so because a boundary becomes sustainable when your choices, behavior, and structure begin supporting what you said matters. And you don't need to keep announcing the boundary. At some point, your behavior has to carry it, right? And so in Quiet Queens Academy, I do not build through pressure. I build through structure. That is why it holds. And so we're going to get into today's topic again, Divine Rising Quiet Queens. Again, like I said yesterday, I'm going to be repeating. Yesterday we talked about something I think it is important. A boundary doesn't need a long explanation to be clear. But today I want to talk about what happens after you communicate it. Because I can tell somebody what my boundary is and I can explain it clearly. They can understand exactly what I said, and then I can turn around and behave in a way that completely contradicts what I just communicated. And at that point, I have to ask myself a different question. Not, why don't they respect my boundary? But am I consistently honoring the boundary I communicated? Because eventually a boundary has to move from words into behavior, right? And so here is my reflection. So one thing I've had to recognize is that I can't keep communicating the same boundary while making choices that contradict it, and only examine what the other person is doing. There comes a point where I have to look at myself, right? I have to look at myself. And if I said I'm unavailable during a certain time, but I continually making myself available, if I said I need time before making decisions, but I continue allowing myself to be rushed, if I said I no longer participate in something, but I keep participating, then I have information about my own follow through that I need to examine. That doesn't mean blaming myself for somebody else's choices. Their behavior belongs to them, but my response belongs to me. And that's where structure becomes important. And so, excuse me, we're going to get into the core of this conversation. So I have about 3 points and then we'll be closing it out. All right. So the first thing is that communicating a boundary and maintaining one are different. Excuse me, communicating a boundary and maintaining one are different skills. So yesterday was communication. Today is behavior. You can communicate something beautifully and still have difficulty following through. Y'all give me just one moment. Give me just a moment. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry for the interruption. I'll be back on screen here in just a moment. Um, so let's get into the second point of this conversation. All right. Um, your behavior communicates too. And it's crazy as I'm speaking about boundaries. I have my boundaries, but sometimes in my household, people tend to cross those boundaries. And and it's yeah, I'm working on it. Let me just say I'm working on it. All right. So let's say your behavior communicates too. That is the second point that we're going to be talking about in the core of this conversation. People don't only learn from what we say, they also experience what we consistently do or constantly do. Imagine saying, please don't call me after 8, then answer every call at 10. Your words communicate one thing, your behavior communicated something else. And that doesn't make the other person's choice yours. So meaning that just because someone calls you at 10, even though you have stated do not call me after 8, and they call you after 10, they call you at 10 anyway, that's their choice. It's not yours, and it's not your responsibility to answer that call. um and the only time I see this, that will be something that you will answer is that it is a emergency. But then at that point, because we have cell phones, you can text me, right? You can text me, and then and if you are repeatedly, call me back to back, then that just kind of indicates that maybe this is an emergency. But then sometimes, you have people that will do that, and it's still not an emergency. But then, in my perspective, it may not be an emergency, but for them, it may be an emergency. However, but if this is something that you continually have to say to this person, then at this point, they're not respecting your boundaries. But then also, you have to honor and respect your own boundaries by simply not answering the phone, right? And so when I say your behavior communicated something different when you answer the phone, that doesn't make, like I said, doesn't make the other person's choice yours. But it does give you something within your own control to examine. A boundary becomes stronger when your words and behavior stop contradicting each other. So, meaning that say what you mean and do what you say you mean, right? And stop going against what you put in place. Because again, the other person's choice is not yours, all right? And so let's tap into the third thing of the core of this conversation is structure can support a boundary so you don't have to renegotiate it consistently or constantly. Excuse me. This is where today's pillar matters. So if you decided you're unavailable after a certain time, maybe your phone setting supports that decision. Now, hear me. It says maybe your phone settings support that decision. So, meaning what it's going to do is going to put that boundary in place by using what you have to support you to keep that boundary in place, to keep you from being renegotiating or keep you from contradicting what you said, right? So let's use some tools to help us keep those decisions in place. So basically, now we all use cell phones. So now let's use our settings to support our decisions. So if you need time before making a commitment, maybe your standard response becomes, let me check before I commit to that. If you decide a certain hour belongs to focus work, maybe those hours go on your calendar before other requests arrive, right? And if you have limited capacity for something, decide what that capacity is before you're standing in the moment trying to determine it. So structure reduces the number of times you have to remake the same decision. And so the academy teaches that systems create freedom and that consistency should be designed rather than demanded. And so it's interesting that, you know, if you have set a boundary, and let's talk about calendars because in business, I say we should live by calendars to a certain extent. Um, but if you're in business and someone wants to have a conversation with you or talk to you something about business related, I mean, it is the responsible thing to keep that boundary. Give me just a moment, real quick here. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, if you're in business, you must set those boundaries. I mean, if you do things in a certain way, if you are like if you do things by your calendar, stay with that. Don't change it just because someone is interested in what you got going on. I mean, and the responsible thing for me is to tell people, you know what? I work off appointments. I work off my calendar. I mean, I'm very transparent about that. I mean, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing to have a business conversation because I mean, depending on the setting, depending on the time, what I'm doing, what the other person doing, is not the right time to have that conversation. And I had to where, someone asked me, though I was outside and they say to me, somebody, well, I'm ready to have that conversation. I want to know what it is that you do. I want to talk about that. I'm really interested. I said, well, I'll send you some information that you can book on my calendar. And so, well, I could talk to you now. No, you cannot talk to me right now. I mean, and no disrespect, but you have to book a call with me. So I don't just, have a conversation just like, nilly willy or a business conversation nilly willy. Let's do this the right way. I mean, so the thing is, I stuck to my boundary. My boundary is if we're going to talk about business, we're going to talk about business, but it's going to be on when my availability is and when your availability is. I'm like, even though that you're available now, hey, go to my calendar and see if I'm available. Because then at that moment we can have that conversation. But as of right now, we're not having that conversation. And so what that means is when you're on your calendar, that gives you time to be in preparation. I mean, if I'm out somewhere and you done booked on my calendar, at least I know, because you can book 24 hours ahead, but you can't book same day. Sometimes you can. I mean, but it's very rarely that you'll get a day with. I mean, get a appointment with me the same day, right? So you'll have to basically book on my calendar and be available when you say that you're going to be available, and I'll be available on the day that you said that you'll be available because that was the availability on my calendar. All right. So the thing is, it's working for both of us, and so basically, you have your boundary in place, and I have mine. And so the thing is, I'm going to honor my boundaries. Right. I'm not going to contradict what I said that I was going to do. And that's what we find ourselves doing, especially in business. I mean, we don't ever, 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 ever want to look like that we are desperate. Because I've seen, and I've probably done this in the past, oh yeah, we can talk about it right now. I mean, didn't have no boundaries in place. I mean, what I find that when you don't have those boundaries in place, sometimes people don't take you serious. They don't take you serious. So the thing is, set your boundaries, honor those boundaries, and be sure that you don't renegotiate or contradict what you have put in place. Don't contradict that. If you say you're going to do it, do it. And if there's things that's going to help you keep those boundaries, use those tools. I mean, like with the phone calling, with the calendar, having business meetings. Don't allow anyone to cross those boundaries, no matter what it is. I mean, and you honor that boundary because you the one put it in place, right? So let's get into the next core of this conversation. Um, honor, excuse me, honoring a boundary may require tolerating somebody else's response. It's interesting, right? Kind of just talked about that, right? So this is where yesterday and today meet together, right? So you can communicate clearly, you can behave consistently, and somebody still may not like the boundary. They may ask again, they may question it, they may be disappointed. Your responsibility isn't to control their response because their response is going to be their response. Your responsibility is to decide whether their response changes what you consciously determined you needed to honor, right? So sometimes maintaining a simple maintaining a boundary, I said maintaining, so maintaining a boundary simply looks like making the same aligned choice again without creating another entire conversation around it. So meaning that you say what you say, you mean what you say, you honor what you say, you don't renegotiate what you're saying, and you honor your boundary. And whatever the other person's response is not yours. It is not yours because they can be upset, disappointed. But the thing is, you absolutely have no control over that. It is not your responsibility to control their response, but it's your responsibility to remain and honor what you said that you were going to do, right? So here is some reflective engagement. And if you decide to, you can drop your perspective in the comments if you decide that you would want to interject your perspective. I am open to it. I love to be enlightened by other people's perspectives. So let's think about one boundary you've already communicated. Don't focus on whether somebody else is honoring it yet. Look at the part that belongs to you and ask, does my behavior support what I said? If it doesn't, don't turn that into judgment. Turn it into information. And what would need to change in your own behavior for my actions to agree with what I communicated, right? So like I said, if you decide that you would like to share your perspective, you're more than welcome to do so. Because, like I said, I love to be enlightened to see other perspectives other than my own, because your perspective matters. Okay. But here is a practical takeaway before we get ready to close this out. The boundary support check. So we're going to check our boundaries, right? We're going to do a support check, right? So choose one existing boundary, then identify what I communicated. What did I actually say? Excuse me. What I currently do. Does my behavior support or contradict it? What structure would help? What simple routine, response, schedule, decision, or environmental change could make honoring it easier? So meaning that and this is the structure part of it, because once you put those structures in place, right, it's going to help you keep your own word or honor your boundary, honor what you said. So then, all right, choose one supporting action, not 10, one. Because the goal is not to constantly think about your boundaries. The goal is to create enough structure that honor them that honoring them becomes part of how you move. So meaning that when you set the boundary in place and the structure that you have for that boundary is going to happen automatically. It's like you don't have to think, like I said, you don't have to think about the boundary because the boundary, because the action that you put in place is going to allow you to honor that and you're going to move in it and not even, be thinking about, well, I set this boundary, you don't be thinking about the boundary, right? The goal is to create enough structure around it that honoring them becomes part of how you move throughout your day, right? Day to day, whatever your day to day task is, or say your DMO, your daily method of operation. Because if you have one, then I'm sure you probably have boundaries in place. Um, and so, in closing, so Quiet Queens, we've moved somewhere important this week. So Monday, we recognize what we're willing to honor. Tuesday, we examined why. Wednesday, we communicated it. And today, we're making sure we're making sure our behavior can support what we've said. And because eventually, I don't want to keep announcing the same boundary, I want my choices to begin carrying it. So that is where self trust comes back into this conversation. So when what I know, what I communicate, and how I move begin agreeing with each other, I create evidence that I can depend on myself. Your boundaries doesn't become powerful because you said it louder. It becomes sustainable when you consistently know what your part requires. And I do not build through pressure, I build through structure. That is why it holds. So that concludes today's conversation. Your boundaries doesn't No, that is not that is not the conversation. That was yesterday's. Your boundaries doesn't need your boundary you don't honor becomes only a statement. So a boundary you don't honor becomes only a statement. Yesterday was an argument. So anyway, in closing, um, in closing, I want to thank you for spending your time with me on this morning, especially spending your time with me all this week up until this point. And so I want to say thank you. And also, if you decide that you would like to know more about the Academy, you can simply go explore the Academy by simply going to academy.quietqueensacademy.com. And that actual link will be changing pretty soon. I have a 30 days that I'm running with the actual Quiet Queens Academy link, because before you can go to Quiet Queens Academy and quietqueensacademy.com and you can actually do the assessment. But if you just want to explore, the Quiet Queens Academy, just go to academy.quietqueensacademy.com. That link should be it's it should be on every last platform that I'm on right now, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and also within the community. If you're already in the Academy and you want to explore, you should already have access. But if you don't, again, just go to academy.quietqueensacademy.com and just explore and find out about, you know, what we teach, our philosophy. Take the assessment. You got the homepage and the about, and you just learn everything about the Academy. And I have some, got a lot of things getting ready to come into play as I am continuing to build this out. I'm humbly grateful that I have gotten to this point of the Academy. And like I said, there's going to be more. Going to start working on some merch, things like that. So Quiet Queens Academy merch. I'm like excited about that. But anyway, but like also, and if you are interested in the actual business model, typically I wouldn't do this, but if you're actually interested in the business model, you can simply go to the I don't think I put it on there, but if you go through the business, if you take the assessment, and you go through the assessment, and I really recommend this, um, or encourage this. I really recommend that you go through the assessment and find out what type of builder you are, whether you're architecture, are you a connector, are you a momentum, are you a I forgot the fourth builder. But anyway, but go through it and find out what type of builder you are. And what will happen is once you submit that, you will get an email with your results, right? You'll get an email with your results. And from there, if you want to, like I said, from there, if you want to find out more about the business model, all you would need to do is go ahead and book a call with me. Um, and then we can sit down and I can show you exactly what the business model is, and then we can move on from there. But anyway, like I said, I want to thank you for spending your morning with me, uh, with Quiet Queen's Morning Live. This is like I'm really really enjoying these segments, because as you know, you go as I share this, these are things that I experience myself as well. So, it's not ever for me to project anything out to everyone else that I am not, internally experiencing myself. So, with that being said, I don't want to keep it too much longer. But again, thank you again for tuning in with me on this morning. And I will see you on tomorrow. And you all have a divine, beautiful day.